It's 4 degrees. The kids think it's dangerous. And he said, you got to go.
Right.
I'm like, Dave, they can't go. And he understood that because he played tuba. He was an instrumental. He says,
right.
I know. He said, I know, but the expectation is that we go. So we were up there in 4-degree weather playing, you know. I remember that's just so, like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
The ground was, you know, it was like a foot of snow on the ground. People were just, the girls were shivering, guys were shivering. I kept telling them, blow in your mouthpieces, keep them cold, warm, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think Doc had, he had things that he really pushed, and then he had things that he had to put up with if he wanted it to be a liberal arts university and wanted to have a music program. Because you remember, he said music and sports are the way you get to young people.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm not sure that he really bought into the idea of a classical music training. I actually think Maisel did more than he did.
Sure.
And
so
he would call upon us, like, I don't know if you remember what, we do those big concerts at the end of the year for seniors and their families.
Yes.
And, they asked Erman to go up and pick out pianos when it was time when we got some money. And I think Maisel consulted with Erman on some occasions about things. So I think she was more interested in it. And of course, he gave piano lessons to Jeannie. So I really think she was the neck that sometimes turned the head, you know.
I do, and you know, and maybe this will help clarify as well, you know, because there was this thing that I ran across a lot in documentation, and that is this idea of an action-oriented curriculum.
Yeah.
What did that, from your perspective, you know, what did that even mean, and how was that supposed to be implemented in actual degree programs as far as you understood it?
Well, you know, they had those, when you were a student there, I don't know if they still have it. Remember, well, anyway, action-oriented mean that you're putting into practice what you're learning. And you remember the students had to do community service. Do you remember that?
Yes, and they still do.
You still do? Okay, so that's part of what that philosophy is about, is putting into action, you know, going out to the community, working with, you know, showing people Christ through what you do, that kind of stuff. So, you know, the onus is on us to have the students performing, you know. I mean, if Dr. Falwell said, hey, we're going to go up to Washington and we're going to do a I Love America rally or whatever it is, I want the band to go. That was part of that. That was part of that philosophy, that you had the students actually out doing things that would, you know, exemplify what Christians are supposed to do.
And so that's a little bit, you know, when we and Liberty moved into some of these new degrees, we have a person I'm going to interview, but he did his dissertation kind of talking about praxis education, which is kind of the, in some ways, action-oriented within the actual academic curriculum, not necessarily, if I say it this way, you know, co-curricular or outside things, yes, but actually within the classroom. And what it sounds like is, at the time, just based on what you've already said, so we have this idea of a classical sacred music degree that really is the idea that as long as you have a strong musical education, you'll then be able to go apply that wherever you go. Whereas today, it's a bit more, and I want to be careful, you know, I don't want to draw conclusions necessarily, but just in talking and understanding, it's a bit more, you know, what happens in the classroom might also be considered action-oriented or praxis education-driven, so that then, yes, you can still go out. The goal is still the same, that you go out and you're prepared to do what you do when you get out there. It's just maybe a little different way of getting there. I don't know if you have, it's not really a question, but if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I'm not totally familiar with what's going on right now as far as it's not even called a sacred major anymore. It's called worship. Did you say worship?
Yes, we have Bachelor of Music in Worship Leadership, and we have Bachelor of Science in Worship and Music and Worship degrees.
Yeah. So, yeah. So you can see even the semantics of the title of it is different, right? Worship.
It is, and if you're in the BM degree, you're getting